Hello folks, I'm Alex. This is Alex Unabridged. Welcome or welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, a little review for you today of a short story collection. This is coming because after working with the authors included in Trash Tales, the anthology of trashy fiction that Criminale and I put together this year, I've been trying to catch up with some of the other work that our featured writers have produced. So I'm going to be dropping a few little reviews of their stuff over the coming weeks and months. And this review is the first of that kind of little series. So yes, let's kick things off today with My Dreadful Dreams, 13 Tales of Terror by Hokunani Sorci. Hoku's story Bloodemic was featured in Trash Tales. This is her debut short story collection. And overall I have to say it's a cracking collection. There's a great range of stories in here. They are all different from one another in terms of the sort of horror that's evoked, settings, etc., the kind of ideas, but they are all squarely in horror. They're not all downright scary. There's a fair bit of humour peppered throughout and fun, things like that, but there are a handful that make for some very unsettling, uncomfortable, or even disturbing reading, I have to say. But we've got elements of like eco horror in here. We've got some demon summoning. We've got kind of horror of the mundane and body horror. We've got kind of religious based horror. We've got kind of boys on bikes, found family, sort of Stranger Things, Stephen King-esque type stuff. We've got dark fantasy. We've got meditations on life and death. And we've got monsters of both kind of the supernatural kind and the human variety. An array of tastes are catered for here. And I think it's the range that makes this a really great collection for me. I never felt like Hoku was like retreading old ground between stories. As I say, they all feel well developed. There's a very clear idea at the heart of each one, and they're very much kind of their own things. But it's Hoku's voice that's clear throughout and ties them together really well. As with all collections of short stories, there are some stories that are always going to resonate with you as the reader, personally, more than others. But out of the 13 stories included in here, there were only 3 that were kind of a bit less my cup of tea than the others. And there was only one that I actively didn't like. But my dislike of that story, I have to say, is nothing to do with the quality of the work, quality of the writing, and everything just to do with my own tastes, basically. The writing is really solid throughout, with many moments of wonderfully evocative prose, excellent character work, and effective forays into some dark and disturbing territory. And I think I've read quite a few collections, single author collections so far, and this one definitely holds up as one where the vast majority of the stories kept me engaged. Even if, as I say, they weren't necessarily my cup of tea, they still kept me engaged, kept me wanting to turn the page, and I still got something out of them, even if they weren't like my favourites. I enjoyed the vast majority of them, but I do want to highlight my top 5 favourites. First one is Danger, ! This one is the boys on bikes, sort of teenage horror adventure type story. This was great fun. The characters of the 5 boys we follow were excellent. They meet to kind of renovate a tree house that one of them has found in the middle of the woods near their school that they found randomly. But a strange teenager called Noah shows up while they're there and up in the tree house, and things get weird and dangerous fast, basically. I just really liked the group dynamic in this one, the creepiness of Noah, this teenager, and the game that he's asking them to play with him. That's all really effective. And so just there's the Stephen King kind of like, group of boys kind of vibes kind of going on here, but not in a rip-off kind of way at all. Like Hoku like brings her own spin to it and her own voice to it, definitely. In at number 4 for me in the collection was a story called Hello, Goodbye. And in this we meet a rather astringent old woman, rather grumpy, nasty old woman, who is in hospital on her deathbed, and her children and grandchildren have come to visit her for the last time. But this old lady has plans to cheat death, shall we say, and her family around her is perilously unaware of how her plans might involve one of their number. This one, I have to say, I found pretty dark, but I like it just for that reason. There's no punches pulled in this story, I think, especially at the climax of the story, and it made it very unsettling to read. It stuck with me. This one definitely stuck with me for a long time after finishing it, and yeah, I just really liked the darkness of that. In at number 3 is Dana's Demon, and this is about a little girl called Dana. I think she's maybe like 6, something like that, if I remember rightly, who summons a demon, accidentally possibly. The humour in this, I love the humour in this, particularly at the beginning of it, because the demon is, summoned and then incredibly frustrated at having to deal with a small child. There's a kind of almost a comedy of errors, or just kind of that kind of mismatched pairing going on that makes for a lot of really good humour, dark humour. What I particularly like about this is that, like, even though it starts off with this quite comedy horror sort of vibe, it definitely starts to lean into the horror more as the story progresses, and we learn about what Dana is actually going through at home, and how she came to be able to summon this demon in the first place. And yeah, this one is a good example of, I think, something that Hoku does really well, and that is the balance of humour and horror, the darkly comic stuff, sometimes weirdly comic stuff, and dark in that respect. But yeah, but that balance between the horror and humour is something that I think is particularly strong. And speaking of humour and horror, second favourite was The Spec. This was definitely darkly comic, but also squirm worthy, this one. Its focus is something relatively mundane. It plays nicely with obsession and body horror as you go along. Yeah, definitely made me kind of squirm a bit, and if you don't like anything to do with eyes, then you might not like this one. But yeah, so your mileage may vary depending on how you feel about horror to do with eyeballs. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I really liked it. It had the right kind of fun, squirmy nature for me. And then my favourite, I think, probably by far, was The Lucky Motel. This begins as a tale of a woman escaping her abusive partner, and on running away from home, she stops for a night's rest at a place called the Lucky Motel, just off the freeway. And that's where kind of everything in the story thus far kind of stops being very much more grounded in the horror stops being grounded much more in real world violence, and kind of turns into something like quite trippy, quite bonkers, really, really quite bonkers. The Lucky Motel is weird. Suffice to say that the woman's abusive boyfriend catches her up, but the hotel and potentially its denizens give him more than he bargained for. But yeah, I absolutely loved the imagination in this one, the all-out weirdness, bonkers nature of it. It had some great Twilight Zone vibes, I think, for me, but it also nailed the brutality of domestic violence and the psychological anguish experienced by the main character as she made that decision to leave. This one just had me hooked from start to finish. I was in straight away. The visuals really stuck with me. It left me with a lot of questions too, in a good way, and just because of the weirdness. Yeah, wonderfully weird. Definitely a great story. My favourite in the collection. So yeah, those are my favourites, but I'd say that across the whole collection, there wasn't any story that dropped below like a 3-star rating. Even the story I didn't like, personally, I can recognise the strengths in that story, even if it wasn't for me. I would definitely recommend checking this collection out. It's a strong, varied collection. It's got extremely readable prose, fab imagination, and a sense of personality comes through from Hoku. I think I would put the whole collection probably at a 4 to 4.5 stars for me. And whilst I'm talking about Hoku's work, I want to plug her upcoming debut novel called The Haven Horror. Full disclosure on this one, I have had the pleasure of doing the interior book design and typesetting for this one. And of course, whilst I've been formatting the book, I've obviously had the chance to read it already. And it's cracking. I really enjoyed the read. It is a great slow burn horror story with a really good payoff, a great action-filled climax, which is also pretty gross in a fun way. Some brilliant humour again, and some really good character work. There are a couple of characters in this which I just adored, that I kind of couldn't wait to get back to those characters in some respects. It's told over like 2 timelines, and one timeline in particular, I absolutely loved the bits of that. I'll read you the blurb so you've got an idea of what it's about. It's 1993. The small, God-fearing town of Haven, Texas, with its quiet streets and friendly neighbours, is a wholesome place to raise a family. But when a teenager vanishes without a trace, the townsfolk begin to question if someone sinister lives amongst them. 30 years later, Jeremiah Johnson, his wife Molly, and their disabled daughter Glory move to Haven, looking for a fresh start. The family is welcomed into this idyllic community with open arms. But something's not right. The people are too nice. Everything seems too perfect. There's a darkness hidden in the heart of Haven, and Jeremiah soon discovers why all are welcome and no one leaves. So yeah, if you like small town weirdness, cosmic folk kind of horror elements, vibes, a really nice kind of creepy mystery that unfolds gradually over the course of the book, then do check this one out. Absolutely. It releases on the 1st of December in paperback and ebook formats, available on Amazon. It will also be available from the 1st of December on Kindle Unlimited. And if you wanted to pre-order the ebook version, you can do that already on Amazon. I will put the links to The Haven Horror and to My Dreadful Dreams as well in the description. So I think that will do from me today. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, do drop your comments down below. It's always lovely to hear from you. I'll be back next week with a big old catch-up of everything that I've read in the last month or so, and some pretty big life updates that I want to tell you about. So yeah, that might be a bit of a ramble, that one. That will be a reading ramble. It might be a longer one. But for now, from me, that's ta-ra.